What's up, guys? Today I'm super excited to share the thing that I've been working on, which is this insanely godly Sorceress Hydra plus basically any core or mastery skill for the brand new Uber bosses. This build is absolutely going to be shredding content. Now, normally with any build guide, I usually always have gameplay playing, but this build is going to be so much different, and the gameplay will just have to be when the actual build comes out so I can share it with you guys. But I'll give you guys a sneak peek at what we've been working on, and this build is going to dominate. So let's go over some of the newer changes first, and then I'll go ahead and explain why we have actually decided to go ahead and spec into this. So starting right off, there is a massive nerf to vulnerable as well as crit strike damage in the game. So a lot of builds, basically majority of high level content creators are moving towards damage over time. The reason why is because damage over time does not benefit off of crit. So therefore, your damage essentially doesn't get nerfed in the critical strike department. However, in terms of vulnerable, you still lose out on that. They've also added brand new vampiric powers that will actually increase dot by a lot. And this is why we're actually going to be going towards dot. And a lot of builds that are interested in doing the Uber bosses are going to be relatively dot based if you want to just kind of cheese the bosses and destroy them without even having to relatively do the mechanics. Even though the boss is technically not out yet, we have kind of seen some gameplay. They just released a trailer for that. But let me go and actually explain first off the changes coming into Season 2 and the reason why I decided to go Sorceress. Normally, I'm like a rogue player, a demon hunter player. This season for Diablo, we hit rank 1 on the servers, and I still am more interested in playing Sorceress because of these changes. So, starting right off, the most important thing that is getting massively, and I mean massively buffed, this is one of the best nodes maybe in the entire game, it's called Elemental Summoner. So the first line where it says your conjuration skills have a 10x multiplicative reduced cooldown or mana cost, doesn't matter. We're really here for the second line. It says they also deal bonus damage equal to 3% multiplicative of the total amount of your bonus damage with fire, lightning, and cold. And that number actually doesn't have a cap, which is awesome. So this means that if you have any bonus to non-physical damage, it actually triple dips. They actually said that word for word inside of their live stream. So that means if you get 5% non-physical damage, that will give you bonus fire, lightning, and cold. Technically, it also gives you shadow and poison, but we don't really care about that for this build. But it technically does work. There is something that you can actually run that does give you poison after a set amount. It's actually not that bad. But nonetheless, we're only getting the bonus with fire, lightning, and cold. And all of these numbers here get put into that number. So it's very powerful. Not only we scale, if we get non-physical, we scale our damage in general. We also get to get this multiplicative bonus here that, again, has no cap. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to actually build Sorceress, is because Elemental Summoner is just crazy levels of good. In addition to that, there is a change with the Hydra's burning damage. So that's the damage over time. So how they've changed it is it doesn't scale with the target's health. It instead scales with the player's weapon. So some people were saying that this is a nerf. However, in the campfire chat, they said that they're not really nerfing us. Their goal is to actually make us just a little bit stronger than we were previously. Now, with this change, it's actually going to scale with your player's weapon. So what this means is, because we get higher item power, in theory, it should be stronger than what we had before, because we also get another massive buff. It's 5 times the amount that we had before. However, keep in mind that it used to scale off the target's health. This is why, if you've looked up any Hydra build, they were shredding out, Sigil 100s very, very easy, and that it was because it was scaling with the HP. So you could be a very low level, go in with Hydra, and it would just scale with the target's HP. But now it's going to scale with the weapon. But we get this massive change here, which I want to say is probably one of the highest buffs I have ever seen, and I've been playing this game even since like 2022 when I had like early access as a Diablo partner. No number has increased this much. This is a 48% increase. This is massive. So the summon Hydra damage, which is the burn, is going to be increased from 12% to 60%. This is massive. On top of that, we have some new powers here that are going to be really good. So one of the new powers is Coven's Fangs, which makes our conjuration, which is what Hydra is going to deal 52% increase at damage to crowd-controlled enemies. And then we have another bonus where it gets to inflict a vampiric curse. So this is going to be really, really good. 52% increased damage. That's, decent, right? And then on top of that, with Flowing Veins, we get to deal an extra 60% increased damage over time to enemies that are moving or affected by a vampiric curse. So you get to basically double dip in pretty much the highest multipliers. I'll go over all of the vampiric powers, but on top of that, what's really good with the Sorceress in particular this season, and why a lot of people are moving towards potentially running Sorceress, is because even though resistances are being fixed, you only really get a small amount. You basically get anywhere from 10 to 15% more all resistance, which this build, we're actually going to be capping out on resistances. We're also going to have, in combat, we're going to have 100% extra bonus move speed, which is the cap. And on top of that, with one of the skills that matter, our crit hit chance with our Chain Lightning will be at over 100%. But nonetheless, Prey on the Weak is also a very amazing thing to have for the Vampiric power, and the reason why is because it actually applies vulnerability to enemies that are affected by a Vampiric curse. Normally, one of the main problems with Sorceress was that you had to use something like your Frost Nova to actually apply that vulnerability, which we still can use. In the very beginning, it just kind of applies it, and it's kind of nice to still have, but it's not heavily reliant on, oh, is the enemy stunned or frozen with the Aspect of Control to actually deal damage, which in Season 0 was very, very strong with Aspect of Control. But obviously, you're going to have to build up that stagger bar for that to matter. So let's go over the build now that I've kind of explained the reasons why I have moved from playing Rogue at the start, which for any of you guys that followed me for Rogue, don't worry, there will be a Rogue guide. It's just Sorceress is just A1 for the start of the season for me. So let's go over kind of the playstyle of the build. So I've written down how to get maximum resistances, how to get all of your bonuses, and there's going to be several builds here in the pinned comment, so you'll have it ready to go also in the description. But I'll have a build where it has no uniques, and I'll have a build that has all of the uniques that you may want to go ahead and actually go for. Some of them are so new that we don't even have the rest of the stats, but like Tibalt's Will is absolutely insane. It's going to give you up to 40% increase, I'm guessing this is multiplicative, after you become unstoppable. And with Oculus, with the newest buff, which gives you an insane amount of damage, you're going to be able to gain a huge bonus in damage, and just because that applies unstoppable, you're just going to gain a bunch of resource every time you teleport, which is absolutely crazy. So it's going to be one of the best boss destroyers, and that's not going to just include the Uber bosses. I'm talking about just going straight towards the Nightmare dungeons, going straight to the boss and just deleting them, because they're actually making a change where they're removing some of these, untie the people, push these switches, do this little kind of thing. You can just basically go straight towards the boss and actually end the Nightmare dungeon. And Sorceress, by a long shot, is one of the best classes because, well, teleport lets you go through walls, and with a lot of the areas in the Nightmare dungeons, it's big to go in between different like levels of terrain. You can skip out a lot of content if you're able to use teleport, so it's going to be hands down one of the fastest builds. Rogue probably in second place, but nothing really beats teleport in the game for mobility, especially because we're going to be stacking Oculus. And as far as like any of the super rare, the Uber uniques, I did put Shaco in here. It's not required for the build. It just gives you +4 to the skills. You can get +4 on your helmet with Hydra. It's not that big of a deal. Anyways, let's go over the min-max build. And again, the only thing here that would be a little bit different that you may not be able to get early on is Shaco. But again, I'll have a build that has no uniques, and I'll have the build that has uniques, and I'll also include a leveling build for you guys that will make things much faster. So starting right off, let's go over kind of how the build plays and the skills. So all you're going to really do is throw up 2 Hydras, and then you just spam Chain Lightning until things die. And you can activate Flame Shield if anything goes wrong. Lightning Spear you can still activate. It's just kind of there so we can actually stun the enemies. And then same thing with the Frost Nova and Teleport for our mobility. Now for the enchantments, we're running a Lightning Spear as well as Firebolt. So what Lightning Spear will do is it's going to give us a chance to conjure a Lightning Spear when we absorb Crackling Energy. That essentially is what Chain Lightning is used for. However, we will actually stack Chain Lightning in this build. And the reason why we're going to stack Chain Lightning is because it's going to actually apply the burn damage, and Chain Lightning is really good. If you've ever played any Conjuration only build, it's kind of slow in terms of how it plays. So a lot of people like to mix in with Hydra another sort of skill to actually deal damage, to clear things. Chain Lightning is one of the best clear skills in the entire game. It's because it doesn't really require aim, and it can just chain off screen, and it's just overall a really smooth skill to actually play, especially when you are leveling up. So basically, again, you just throw down the Hydras and you spam Chain Lightning. Chain Lightning will do damage. I'm not going to not scale it. I know there are some builds out there that can still clear Sigil 100 with a level 1 Chain Lightning. Again, you're mainly using this to apply the stun on Lightning Spear, so you can actually stun the enemies and build up that stagger bar. I'll also later include another build where if you don't want to use Chain Lightning, you can run basically any skill in the entire game, as long as it is able to just kind of do some sort of damage. You don't even have to play Crackling Energy. It's just because I don't know how these newer bosses interact, and building up that stagger bar is always pretty decent at the end of the day. So in terms of the equipment, here's what we've got. I'll show off, again, if you want the non-unique build, that will also be included, but we're pretty much kind of looking for the same things overall. So all of these will still have maximum resistance, but we've got Shaco over here for a helm. We're going to be running Raiment of the Infinite, so that's going to be good for teleporting, and on top of that, we get to stun the enemies. And we're going to be running the Accelerating Aspect, so just being able to increase our attack speed is good. And then we're running the new Tibalt's Will. This is going to be almost best in slot for most classes. And since in combat with Esu's Heirloom, we can actually just get that free maximum 30% of the crit strike bonus here. And we also get crit strike damage. We also get shrine buff, but it doesn't really matter. We also get bonus movement speed after killing an elite. And all we're going to be using that movement speed for is the brand new Vampiric powers. And then we're going to be running Oculus. Oculus is getting a massive buff. So the number is 26.2 in terms of the bonus damage that it can give you on the new damage. But that is getting multiplied by 315%, so it's like 90% extra damage, which basically fills that up. And it makes it just as viable since the crit and vulnerable are now additive damage. This is going to be amazing because the attacks also reduce the evade's cooldown, and our evade is essentially going to be getting teleport because it grants us the ability to have the teleport enchantment for free. And whenever we use our mobility, we're just going to be getting a bunch of extra movement speed as well as damage, which is going to be awesome because this gives us extra movement speed after we kill a elite, and movement speed is going to be good for the build, and we'll explain why once we get to the Vampiric powers. So in terms of the amulet, we're going to be running the aspect of the Unbroken Tether, so that makes Chain Lightning chain more times. Remember, in the amulet, it's going to give us a additional 50% bonus. And then we're kind of just looking for movement speed, cooldown reduction. I mean, if you mouse over it, it'll tell you exactly what you're kind of looking for. And this goes for the non-unique build as well. And then for the ring, we are going to be running the one that gives us a bonus Hydra. So that's the Serpentine aspect. We're just looking for a max life, crit strike chance. We still want to scale vulnerable damage. We don't really care about crit damage, but vulnerable damage will be still something that we scale, and we'll get into that in a moment. And then we are also running the recharging aspect that is going to give us the extra mana regen when we actually have Chain Lightning bounce. So this is how we have essentially infinite mana. And then we're going to be running the brand new we can either run, there's actually two things that we can run here. So we can actually gain increased crit strike chance. Now, if you want to min-max towards the end of the game, you definitely want the Elementalist aspect. But there's actually another one that gives you another huge bonus, which is basically like Convention of Elements, called the Aspect of Elements. Earlier on, running Aspect of Elements is great, but if you want to get min-max on the crit, because you want to pick up these crackling energies that is going to actually apply stuns, then you can run the Elementalist aspect. It's kind of up to you. There's a couple things for flexibility here. And then in terms of the gen, because it is a damage over time build, but it's not going to be super slow, especially because Chain Lightning is just a very fast skill. We still want damage over time because most of the trash stuff we will delete instantly, and the bosses, I'm talking about the Uber bosses and the Nightmare Dungeon bosses, it's going to take a little bit of time for most builds anyway, so this is just going to help out. And then we're going to be running rubies. And then right now, for some reason on the build website, it's, even though I'm selecting like season 2, it still shows up as the like Malignant Hearts. But we're going to be wanting to run diamonds. That's going to give us 5% resistance to auras in every single slot, and this is how we're going to be capping out at 70 resistance for the newer updates, with the bonus to resistances actually working properly now. Now, as far as the Vampiric powers go, this is what we want. We want Ravenous. We're going to be able to increase our attack speed based off of our total movement speed. So this is massive. So we get to, it is a lucky hit chance, but because the way Chain Lightning works, it's just going to just bounce, and it's just pretty much 100% uptime. So you're going to be getting a massive amount. We're talking, it's 40% of our total movement speed. So if we have 100, that's 40. If we get to double that at 200% value, well, that's 80%. That is going to be, well, it's 40% of our total movement speed, not our bonus movement speed, which is different than Esu's. So Esu's gives the bonus based off of our bonus movement speed. So that your movement speed in this game is capped at 200 with the exception of a few things. You can go to 200%. Now, this will only give you the bonus of 30% because it's going to give you 100% bonus. But this is going to count that 200% value. So this is going to give you just a massive amount of attack speed here. And then with Coven's Fang, our Hydras are going to deal more damage, and then there's also the Vampiric Curse. Lucky chance is actually pretty bad on Hydra, but it's really not that big of a deal. And then running Prey on the weak, so more damage to vulnerable enemies, and it's going to also apply that vulnerability, which is awesome. Then we're running a Curse Touch over here that makes it so there's a chance to inflict Vampiric Curse on enemies, and enemies with a Vampiric Curse can actually spread it. So this is how we're going to actually apply the Vampiric Curse on the enemies more consistently. And then with Flowing Veins, we're going to get 60% increased damage over time. So basically we get to actually double dip in Coven Fangs and Flowing Veins, which is really, really good. And I already mentioned the gem changes. Yeah, you want diamonds again. It just for some reason doesn't show up. So in terms of the build, what we have equipped over here, we're not going to equip a basic skill. We just need this so we can actually apply the enchantment, and you need it to progress. So we're going to be using Chain Lightning here, and then we want the one where it's going to have the chance to form the crackling energy when Chain Lightning crits. This is why we actually still want crit strike chance. We don't care about crit strike damage, but we just want to be able to pick up those crackling energies so we can actually stun the enemy with the Lightning Spear bonus here. So absorbing crackling energy conjures the Lightning Spear, and Lightning Spear will actually be the thing that actually stuns the enemies. Then we're getting some extra mana, and we're just going to deal more damage with Dominance. And we're going to get Potent Warding, Flame Shield, we got Frost Nova over here, and want the one that makes them vulnerable. Then we're going to want Teleport, Enhance, and then also the one that gives us damage reduction. Extra damage with Glass Cannon. Then we're going to be maxing out Hydra, getting Enhanced Hydra, and Summon Hydra. Remember, this one is going to be getting a huge amount of burn damage over here. So that one is great. And then we're getting Lightning Spear over here. And remember, this is the one that's actually being changed over here. As you can see where it would say from 12%, it's 60% now. This is massive. And then we've got Lightning Spear. So this is the thing that we're picking up. Now, this thing doesn't do really that much damage, but it'll still apply burn because of the enchantment over here. And we get to get increased crit strike chance for this. But when Lightning Spear stuns an enemy for 2 seconds when critically striking. So Lightning Spear is going to be very, very good just to apply the stagger. And what we're going to do is we're going to have the ability to teleport in with Ryman, and it's just going to suck everything up, and the Lightning Spear is just going to start hitting everything, stunning everything, and it's going to be awesome. And then we're going to run Align the Elements over here, so we get some extra resistances. Now, in the non-unique build, you do not actually need to go ahead and grab that. There are 2 different variants of here. Again, in the very beginning, obviously, you're not going to be able to get a Shaco and some of these uniques, so run that one in the very beginning first, but I'm just kind of explaining the min-max one here so the video isn't too long. And then as far as the mastery goes, we're running Static Discharge over here, Invigorating Conduit. So this one is great because crit strikes will give us that crackling energy. We want to pick up that crackling energy to get those Lightning Spears so we can actually stun. And for this over here, it's under the ultimate category. We actually don't run the ultimate, but we're running the currents because we need to go ahead and push. And then we're getting extra damage reduction here, but we're really here to give us extra movement speed. Remember, extra movement speed is more DPS because of Ravenous, and then shock skills have a chance to stun enemies. So we have a natural chance to stun already, and then on top of that, we have those picking those things up will stun more. So essentially, you can make the build very, very squishy, and if the enemies are consistently stunned, with the exception of course, the brand new Uber bosses and the bosses from the Nightmare Dungeons, most of the time things will just be stunned or frozen because you have Frost Nova if anything goes wrong. It's great. And then for the key passive, we're going to be running Combustion over here. So I like how this looks a little bit better than just going over the skill tree over here, which I think it just looks sloppy. But I mean, if you want to see it for visual clarity, there's also like, if you're using Mobalytics, you can just download the thing and it will actually let you just kind of apply it in the game and you don't have to worry about it. But I just think that in terms of how neat it looks way better here. Now for the Paragon board. So starting right off, we want to scale as much non-physical damage as possible. So we're going to be maxing out on that. So again, this will be linked down below. Keep in mind for the leveling build, it won't obviously have the Paragon board, but we're going to be just going up here and we're going to be going, I think the most important thing is like what glyph we're running. So starter board, Enchanter over here. Then we're going Elemental Summoner, Conjurer, because this thing is just crazy good over here, giving us increased duration. And then on top of that, Conjuration, which is Hydra, which is our main source of damage. It's going to be really good. And then we're going to actually go to the left and we're going to get Enchantment Master, and we're going to be running Elementalist. And this one's going to be good because it gives us bonuses to the non-physical damage and damage reduction modifiers over here. So that one is going to be very, very awesome to grab. So that's Enchantment Master Elementalist. And then what we're going to do, we're going to go to number 4, which is the Burning Instinct. So Burning Instinct, oh, I probably should have mentioned this, but we also do get the Elemental Summoner here. This is the brand new thing that is just so incredibly powerful. And this one we do not pick up. This one we don't pick up Enchantment Master. But on Burning Instinct, which is the 4th Paragon board, we do want to get the bonus with the Burning Instinct, so we get to do more burn damage. Remember, this is going to be even better because it now scales with 1% for every 75 intelligence we have. We'll cap out, depending on your pieces of gear and the rolls, most of the stuff you do want to get int on it, and you get about 1,000-ish. Again, depending on the roll, 900 is really, really easy to hit. But 1,000 is kind of like towards min-maxing, but you can get to like 11, 1,200 if you really try to push to min-max. And then we're running control just so we can get extra bonus damage because we're going to be stunning most of the time. However, I didn't really want to scale so much into stun. There is more stun nodes that you can take. The thing is that to reach the stagger bar, it takes time. That's why I actually prefer to run the dot build, just because it's just going to be more consistent on the bosses, because you may stagger the boss like once and you might just be able to wipe it before it even really matters. If you guys have remembered, a lot of the bleed as well as poison damage, poison imbue on any of the Uber Lilith kills, most of those, I mean, staggering is nice, but you only really need to stagger like once to eliminate them, and it's just going to be nicer to have because you get to actually get yourself a huge amount of damage, because getting 20x multiplicative is kind of more damage. Most of the nodes just in general in the game are kind of designed around a 10x multiplier, and then anything beyond that is just going to require a little bit more. All right, so now that we've gone over page 4, let's go over page 5 here, because we're going to kind of skip around. So the next one is going to be Frigid Fate, and Frigid Fate actually got a nice bonus. And with all of our bonus to cold damage, even though our build isn't supposed to be for cold damage, we get to just deal bonus damage to vulnerable enemies times X 10% of the total amount of your bonus damage with cold, up to a maximum of 30 over here. So we're going to be getting that, and we're just going to scale some vulnerable damage, even though it's basically additive. Just getting this is X multiplicative, so that's going to be great. And then we're running the destruction over here, so it's going to make it so you get increased crit strike damage. Again, it's additive, but crit strikes increase all of the damage the enemy takes up to you, so it's another 12%. So it's like another 2% better than kind of some of the other ones, so it's still like a little bit better. And then we're going to be getting Ceaseless Conduit, and we're going to be throwing Charged over here. So picking up those crackling energies, again, most of the multipliers are going to be X 10%. This gives us a bonus of 15%, and we just have to pick up those crackling energies, and this is why we put it in the very last node, because we just want to touch this for the X15 multiplicative damage bonus. But again, if you guys do want the other build that has the non-uniques, feel free to go ahead and just check out the link. I'll have it pinned and everything ready for you guys as far as leveling. But yeah, I'm really excited about the Season of Blood, and if you guys want to come into the live stream and check out the build once the season does go up, drops will be enabled over on the Twitch stream as a Diablo partner. We always have that enabled. We actually just got featured by Blizzard for this season of Diablo, which was awesome. And yeah, so if you guys want to get free cosmetics as the Twitch drops, this is not a chance you will get these 100%. As long as you guys are in the stream for a set duration, you will get these Twitch drops, which if you guys want to visit my Twitch, exact same name as YouTube. But that's going to go ahead and wrap things up. Let me know, guys, what do you plan to actually play with in the upcoming season? For me, I'm going to be starting off actually doing the Uber bosses. I want to just go to my level 100. I want to do the Uber bosses first. Then we're going to roll Sorceress. Then we're going to probably roll a Rogue next, because that's kind of like my favorite class. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn that bell, and I'll update you guys with the gameplay as soon as we max out, and I can show you guys how good this build will actually be. But take care, and I'll see you in the new video. Peace out.